You can do all the high-speed, low-drag stuff, but if you don't have your fundamentals, you're going to suck at it. Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Podcast US. Thanks for joining us here on one of the world's biggest gun talk programs as we talk about all the interesting stuff in the world of shooting. I'm your host, Brent Wheat, joined by my co-host, Roy Huntington. Hey, Roy, how's it going?
I have my USA hat on.
Well, I was going to tell you, if you can see it, I'll lean up here in the frame. I've got my American Handgunner shirt on. I dug that out. You were the former editor and the publisher of American Handgunner when I was the, let's see, Tom McHale was editor, and then before that was Mike Humphreys, and I think you were editor prior to that, weren't you?
Yeah, I was editor for almost 20 years, from about 2000 on. Yep. And then as I was trying to back away, I hired Mike Humphreys, and then he left and went to Springfield Armory. And then Tom came aboard, and about that time I retired. And meanwhile, you had been hired during that phase. And so, no, it was a lot of fun. We had a great crew. Yeah.
Well, I was the last editor of Guns Magazine, the paper magazine version, which still causes me a twinge of pain, but it is the world today. But gunsmagazine.com is still there, and we're still writing, so make sure you stop by there and check out all the good stuff all the gun goodness. You can sign up for their newsletters and all that. So gunsmagazine.com. But before we get started, Roy, of course, we need to get a quick word in from our sponsor, our friends at Holosun. When performance matters, shooters trust Holosun. From law enforcement officers and military professionals to competitive shooters, hunters, and everyday firearms enthusiasts, Holosun builds optics for people who demand reliability when it counts. Whether you're looking for a red dot sight, magnifier, laser, or weapon light, Holosun delivers the durability, clarity, and precision you need on the range or in the field. Their products are proven through real-world use and backed by a commitment to push optic technology forward. When you're ready to upgrade your gear, learn more at holosun.com. All right, Roy. Well, in this week's episode, we're giving advice, and it is new shooters, stop making it harder than necessary. And actually, that applies, I think, to all shooters because we're all guilty of it to one degree or another. The more experience you have, the less you do this, but we're all guilty of it occasionally. And that's just that idea of thinking that gear solves problems that skill doesn't. And we all try to buy our way to competency, and it doesn't work. And we talk about that a lot, but I don't know that we've actually done a show per se about that whole idea. So, I saw a quote the other day that, buying equipment sounds like or feels like progress, whereas developing skill requires work, and we're all guilty of sometimes we'd rather buy than work. So this episode isn't anti-gear, but I think people have come to appreciate the fact that Roy and I kind of lay it out there that, we like you to buy our sponsors' products, and we won't talk about stuff we don't like or don't support, but don't confuse gear with skill. So did I hit that right, Roy?
Well, it is a delicate dance because, as we've learned through decades of being in the magazine business, I mean, it is a quid pro quo. You have people who buy advertising for you, for instance, and it would be improper business to then do a cover feature of what a piece of crap their product was.
Even though some YouTube guys have done exactly that, which is why they're not working for them anymore. But anyway,
they do that. I mean, we always solve that problem by if we had an advertiser, but we didn't really think their product was what it could be, well, then we really didn't write articles about them. Yeah, exactly. They may be in the new product page, which is just like a little press release. Hey, Bill Smith is making this in blue now, right? Yep. And so we used to tell people, if you don't see an article about it, well, then that probably is telling you something, So, so having said that, we're not saying to don't go buy new stuff. Not at all.
Yeah.
If something is good and will help you improve whatever it is you're doing, shooting, hunting, better camouflage, deeper penetrating, long distance ammunition, sunscreen, it really doesn't matter what it is. If it will help you do whatever you're doing better, even if some of it is just psychological.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, do you really need a $4,000 rifle scope to go deer hunting in Missouri at 100 yards? No.
Yeah.
But does it make you feel good? Is it fun? Well, then that doesn't hurt anything if you can afford it.
Yep.
Somebody said something. It was really funny. He said, yeah, it was a comment. And he said, any industry convinces people to buy things they don't need with money they don't have.
Yeah. Well, what we try to do is exactly what we're doing an entire show about today, is just that idea that buy all you want. Hopefully you're happy with it and it makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside, but don't think that's going to make you a better shooter, hunter, painter, photographer, or whatever. Because I'll tell you what, Roy, I'm actually guilty of that in the photography side far more than I am on the shooting side. If I get this new camera that's got, that 0.5 megapixel improvement, it's worth dropping a couple of $1,000. And there's nothing worse than going, these pictures aren't any better. And in fact, in some ways, they're worse. So that applies to shooting. But I made a list of things to talk about, and I'm pretty sure this one will make your eyes light up because you've talked about it quite a bit. But we've never really put it this way. But number one is the idea of buying the gun before you figure out your mission. And people are like, what? Well, I'm going to buy the gun. And no, I mean, are you hunting? Are you target shooting? Are you socializing? Are you self-defensing? Are you doing two of those? What are you doing? And that's probably the original sin in shooting, is people buy guns before they even really know what they need that gun for. And I got to admit, I've done that too. And I'm sure the old experienced hands watching this or listening are going, yeah, me too. But I know that really, I think it was 2 shows ago, we talked about that a lot, that if you don't know what your mission is, why do you need the gun in the first place? So
the classic thing that happens to me and you is that, okay, we're the gun guys, right? So Bill Schwartz calls me up and says, hey, I just bought the new SKS carbine that I saw for sale at the garage sale. What do you think? And it's like, well, I don't really know what you want me to say. I mean, because if, let me take that in a different direction. What do you think about the new Smith & Wesson model fill in the blank? Oh, okay. Well, I personally think if you want to do this with it, it's okay, but I think it has some shortcomings and it has other things like that. And they say, oh, well, because I already bought it.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, well, why didn't you ask that question first?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Why didn't you just say, I need some reinforcement? Can you say some positive stuff, Roy?
And so what I do is they'll say, I want to buy a new gun and I want it to be a 9mm. What should I buy? Well, the first thing I do is I do just what you're talking about, is I say, well, what do you want to do with it? Is this plinking? Is it fun? Is it weekend competition? Is it small game hunting? Is it collecting? Is it, I mean, are you amassing a collection of a certain brand? What is it that you want to do with that? And it's amazing the number of times people say, well, I don't know.
I just want it.
I mean, I guess I'm going to carry it. Okay.
Yeah.
You guess you're going to carry it, or do you need to buy a gun to carry, but in the old days of computers, when computers were first coming out, like in the 80s, kind of middle 80s, people would always say, oh, I'm going to get that new cool iMac, right? And then they would buy the cool iMac, and then they would find out that you couldn't buy software for it that did what you needed to do. And that's when I learned, before in those days, at least, because now everybody can do everything. But in those days, you would stop and say, what job do I have to do? I need to do books for my business. Okay. What software is it that does books for my business? This one. Okay. Now, what computer will run that software? Right? So then that's the computer you buy. The computer buying was the last step. And I think the same applies for guns. Your first question is, do I need a gun? Okay. Or do I want a gun? All right. Well, there's two different categories, right?
Yeah.
If you want a gun, well, that's fine. Hey, buy whatever you want. Then, add to your collection or have fun or whatever, play cowboys. But if you need a gun, well, then that's the software thing. What is the job at hand? The job at hand is handgun hunting. Okay, good. Now we look at what ammunition is needed for your handgun hunting. Here, this ammunition here. Now, what guns can accommodate the ammunition and would work well for handgun hunting? And now suddenly you know what you're going to go buy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, but that applies to everything.
Yep.
So if you're getting shooting glasses, you need to play that same game.
Yep. And, we've talked about it before, but it's something that we joke about all the time. If I see the ultimate shooting glasses, the ultimate handgun, the ultimate rifle, really, there are very few things in life that I've found are truly the ultimate, but when you're getting down to buying a gun or shooting accessories or bullets or cameras, the ultimate generally is, if you believe that, you're going to kind of be disappointed. So
remember, what did we say? They want you to buy stuff you don't need with money you don't
have. Exactly.
I mean, because it's not a bad thing. It's business. That's fine. We have a successful industry. People enjoy it. We do what we do. Their job as a company, I mean, you don't have a company and say, let's not make anything new or sell anything at all this year. Right?
Yep.
Well, no. Yeah. So there, because I've been in these meetings when I was at Bianchi, when I was at other companies. Hey, we're going after the entry level shooter this year. What are some ideas? What products should we have? Who should we partner with? And all that kind of stuff. So it's part of the process. They think up ideas and make them and then convince you that you need them.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think where the break is, where people just automatically default to reaching into their pocket and saying, oh, it's new. I'll have that. Because I have tools in my shop that I was strolling the aisles of Grizzly tools and I looked and I went, wow, that looks really cool. That is a cool thing right there. I'm buying one,
Yep.
And then it still sits underneath my workbench in the box that I originally bought it because I didn't have any real need for it.
Yeah. That's why I have two storage units aside from my home, because there's stuff that I had to have it, but that kind of enters into point number 2 I wanted to make that I wrote down. It's accessories before fundamentals. And we've talked about that a lot. Accessories don't equal skill. You buy a new gun. Okay, well, I need a holster, which, okay, that makes sense, or a sling. But now I need a new aftermarket trigger, and I've got to get an optic and a compensator and a light, of course, and mag extension, magazine well adapter, and, and we see it all the time. And I know it makes our gun shop owners happy and it keeps the industry afloat. But I'm here to tell you that maybe you ought to figure out if you can hit with this gun and if it does everything you want it to do in your particular sphere that you're focused on. And then start looking. And again, I'm preaching stuff that I've not done in the past, but hopefully older and wiser, and try to tell folks that before you pull out that credit card, be thinking about, do I really need this? Is really going to make a big difference in what I'm doing?
Well, the thing is that don't guess. In other words, if you're at the range and your gun's malfunctioning for some reason, don't guess and think, oh, well, I need a new gun, or I need a better sight, or I need a spring kit, or I need... Find out what's going on and then buy what you need to fix what's going on. And so if you're duck hunting and you shoot at ducks and you don't hit them, that doesn't mean you need a new shotgun.
Yeah.
It may not mean you need different ammunition or better camouflage or, 3 more duck calls or like 100 new duck calls. Like I know one guy, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff is fine. Hey, I want some new camo. Okay, cool. That's fine. Do it. Right? Nothing wrong with that. But don't do these things thinking that you need them. I used to just enjoy it when I would go to, say, Thunder Ranch or a place like that. You'd see the more novice shooters would show up on the first day of a basic handgun class. And they're just what you say. They look like a walking advertisement for the accessory market. in the outdoor industry.
Yeah.
And I mean, every single widget, tactical water bottle, I mean, everything you can imagine. And then the more seasoned guys that are there like, hey, this is my 5th basic handgun class that I've taken, which proves to me they're smart.
Yeah.
Right. And, but you see them show up and they've got like a really lightweight belt, maybe 2 magazines and a couple magazines in a pocket,
Yeah.
right? A good quality holster, but a simple holster. Usually like a straw hat if it's in Texas because it's hot out. They're not wearing black. They're wearing like a Hawaiian shirt and short pants and some tennis shoes,
Yeah.
and they've got whatever free water bottle that they got from the last place they shopped or something,
Yeah.
right? And they're having a good time and everyone's relaxed. And meanwhile, by noon on the first day in the 105-degree South Central Texas heat, all these other guys are just sweating and we're still like relaxed and standing in the shade talking about what we're going to do after lunch. Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And so those guys learned the hard way that having the best new coolest triple electronic Magnaport hearing muffs is not going to probably be that last little thing that's going to turn you into that ninja warrior,
Exactly. So. And you made a good point. I'd never thought about this until you just said this, and I've been guilty of this. You got your cool guy gear on, and you got 17 magazines in the class. How many do you need?
Yeah,
3 tops.
3 or 4, maybe, maybe.
I mean, I've seen guys festooned with magazines. They've got over 100 rounds on them or maybe more. And I know some classes, they do have a higher round count than others, but it's just funny that I'm thinking back on my own experience. I used, as you said, 3, maybe 4. And the rest of the time you get done with the class and it's like, I never even touched these 3 magazines. So.
Well, and 4 only because you get lazy and you don't feel like loading magazines in between stages or something.
Exactly.
But many times I shot with my duty gear, 2 mags, single stack mags and the one in the gun and a back pocket full of ammo. And just like, it was all basically shoot, reload, shoot, reload. And that's actually better because what's it doing? It's forcing you to do gun handling skills.
Yeah.
More and more and more, So you're finding magazines, you're loading magazines, you're looking at the target, you're looking at your partner, you're learning how to load without looking, you're learning how to put magazines back in the pouch, So that's the goal,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I've seen those guys. They come out and there's literally like 20 magazines around their waist.
Yep.
First of all, that's hot and heavy, and I don't want to do that. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I got to say, we'll sidebar this. I've seen it in law enforcement too. And I don't know what the magic number is. Just carrying 1 magazine might be too little, but we've all seen the guy that is festooned with double mag carriers, both sides. And, he's got a drag bag in the back seat of his car. It's like, sir, if you're in Fallujah or maybe a real bad area where there's a lot of gunfire, maybe. And again, there's no hard and fast rule, but I've seen those guys that it's like, wow, that's heavy if nothing else. So,
well, I knew a guy one time who got in a gunfight on my police department. We had revolvers. And it was just like 3 or 4 shots, bang, 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 it's done. Right. But the next time I saw him, he had 4 speed loaders, and his gun. And in the middle of his back, he had a 6 or 10 cartridge loop, with cartridges on it.
Yeah.
Which he had to take down because we weren't allowed to have cartridges displayed.
Yeah.
And then he had a backup gun on his left ankle and a backup gun on his right ankle.
Yeah.
And so, nobody really made fun of him to his face. I mean, later on, it was like, really? Maybe?
Yeah.
But anyway, back to what we're talking about, though. I think if you go in a brick and mortar gun store, the displays are there because they want you to buy stuff. And that's fine. That's what it's all about. Right. And if they're nice and they're knowledgeable, they can help you. Yeah. So, but the secret, though, is when you walk in and your eyes are glazed over at the gun cleaning rack, and you think, oh, maybe that looks like a better brush. Maybe I need that brush. And that's a better gun oil. than the other gun oil that I already use, and that'll help me, right? By the way, that's the like number one question I ever get is, what gun oil should I use?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, whatever you have sitting on your bench is fine, including car oil. Okay. But at that point though, that's when you have to stop back and take a deep breath, and you have to stop and think, well, is my gun being cleaned okay? Yes, it is. Are the brushes working? Yeah. Does the oil seem to work? Yeah. Well, then you don't need any of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's a hard thing though, because like you say, we all have, it's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Ooh, that gun oil's red.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to close this out, there's a quote that I found, and it didn't give me a source. So I'm not plagiarizing. I just don't know what the source is. It sounds like a Clint Smith thing to me, but it was, you don't need a better trigger. You need to learn how to press the one you've got. So
times 500.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I purposefully keep some guns around here with the world's worst triggers. I mean, I've got a PPKS here that's got about a 14-pound rough, gritty, terrible double action trigger pull. And I shoot it a lot. Because when you're done shooting that and then you pick up your J frame with a tuned trigger, it's like, oh, the angels sing in the background. And, pick up a high point, learn to shoot it. Because trust me, it works,
Yep.
Well,
item number 3 here I've got on how to make it harder for yourself is not taking a class. And I'm a huge proponent of professional instruction, and you don't have to. You do not have to, but your learning curve, as my friend Ken says, will rocket, because a good instructor can see what you're doing, offer you his experience and that of his school, and point out where you're making mistakes, and at least give you a different way of doing it. Whether you choose to adapt to that, that's your business, but having a qualified instructor, and I know what the problem is. You just drop $1,000 on a gun and a couple hundred on a holster and magazines, and then you had to buy ammo. Man, a gun class is really expensive, and especially if you're going to one of the top tier gun schools. But like Roy said, most places you can find for basic introduction, you can find a relatively competent local instructor, and even that much training will really make you that much better shooter. And then if you want to really get good, the key is being a lifelong student. I've said it many, many times. I've taken many classes at Gunsight. I will continue. And as you said, Roy, I'll probably take the 250 again. I've actually got a case of ammo sitting in Ken's closet out there, and I'm just trying to figure out a time to go back through the 250, which would probably be the 3rd or 4th time, because it's the fundamentals. And we've talked about that recently. It's fundamentals. That's the key. You can do all the high speed, low drag stuff, but if you don't have your fundamentals, you're going to suck at it. So anyway, training class, it's a good thing. Sometimes we get accused of being shills for the training industry, and that's not it at all. You don't have to go every single class, every week, all that, but some professional training would be a good thing.
I hear this all the time. You do too. Oh, I grew up hunting with my grandfather, so I know about guns. Right? Or I was in the military.
Oh.
I was in the Navy, which means he fired a gun maybe twice.
Yeah.
Maybe, and don't be that guy. In other words, celebrate that. I love that. Hunted with your father, outstanding. If your father was an experienced firearms instructor or had a lot of lifetime of experience, I'm sure you learned a lot from them. And there's nothing wrong with that. But don't stop there. And because a number of people I've seen who say, oh, I grew up hunting with my dad, I know all about guns. And then they are the most terrifying people to actually shoot with, because they muzzle you and they don't clear the gun and they jerk the trigger and and it's like, it's always terrifying. So don't be that guy.
Well, I had to laugh. I just thought of something when you said that, Roy. I bet you've had this experience. Somebody muzzles you and you go, hey man, you're muzzling me. And they don't say I didn't, because they know they did, but they go, well, not much. What do
or
you
it's
mean?
okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's unloaded.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd prefer not to be a statistic. So,
Yeah.
when you think
Just
about it, when somebody's injured accidentally, not a single one of them thought the second before the shot went off, well, I'm going to be a statistic now. No, everybody thinks up until the moment bullet or shot penetrates flesh, they think everything's fine, no big deal. And if you've been around guns enough, you realize I always err on the side of caution rather than chance.
yeah. And I mean, I don't want us to get on a rant on this, but you don't be afraid to caution someone.
Yeah.
And because people do, they go, oh, I really don't want to say anything a little bit embarrassing. I mean, you don't necessarily have to say, hey, jerkhead, but reaching over and pushing the muzzle away and just say, hey, be careful, watch your muzzle.
Yeah.
Right. And that, to me, now is the critical moment. And I will evaluate my friendship with whoever I'm with. Because if they go, oh man, I am so sorry, I apologize, right? That's great. You say, well, that's okay. We'll just be careful. I'll be careful too. But if they say, what? Oh, it's okay. It's unloaded.
Yeah.
What?
Not much.
It's like, okay, well, then we're done.
Yeah.
You are now uninvited to my range forever.
Yep.
So don't be that guy either. So, all right. Well, buy new stuff if you like and if you need new stuff.
Yeah.
But just remember, it's right. 2 categories, right? Need and want.
Yep.
And just learn what those 2 things are. So.
Yeah. Well, point number 4 I've got here, and we can wrap it up with this one because we've talked many, many times, but it bears repeating. If you're a new shooter, you're making it harder on yourself if you, shoot too fast. Mag dumps are fun. We've all done it. The Mad Minute is fantastic, but you're not learning anything. You're just turning expensive ammunition into noise is what you're doing. So.
Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. What he said. Oh, actually, I've got one more here, Roy, that this one may elicit some discussion. It's constantly changing equipment. And this one is a gray area because I'm changing all the time by virtue of what I do. But sometimes we change simply for the sake of change. And because that's a cool looking holster, I'm going to try that. And well, okay, I wore it for 2 weeks. It sucks. I'm going to go back to, the guy that's constantly changing equipment. At some point, you got to wonder, is he really making it better for himself in the long run? Or is he just changing because he doesn't know what he wants? So.
Well, I agree. It's need or want. It's back to that. I mean, if you want to learn about holsters and you go buy a half a dozen holsters, that's great. But if you have a holster that works and you carry it all the time and you kind of draw from it automatically, just randomly changing holsters that's kind of dangerous actually, because then when the ball drops, you go to reach for your cross draw holster and then you remember sometime during that draw that actually you have a strong side holster on today.
Or it's on your ankle.
Yeah. Or it's on my ankle. So, I mean, as far as shooting guns, I think shooting a lot of different guns is a good thing because it gives you experience with a lot of platforms. You learn gun handling skills for a lot of platforms. Clint used to always say, you never know. You're going to reach down and pick up a battlefield pickup. And so it's good to know how to, people say, oh, I never carry a revolver. Well, I'm sorry, but you should learn how to run one. Remember Quigley Down Under where he shoots the bad guy with a revolver and he says, I thought you said you didn't you didn't know how to use them. And he said, no, I never said I didn't know how to use them. I said I didn't like them.
Exactly. And that's a moment in law enforcement that I think any current or former cop, you're at a crime scene and you see a guy pick up the gun that was used and he's messing around. And you're like, Bill, you need some help with that? No, I'm unloading it. Are you sure? When they don't have the slightest clue as to what they're doing, and you got to be very diplomatic here. Let me show you how to get the bull out of there. So, the battlefield pickup can be a thing. So,
but it's back to the open mind, evaluate your needs. Are they needs or are they wants? And it's okay to appease both of those. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the biggest thing I like to tell people is, okay, you bought your first gun. You bought the ammunition, you have hearing protection, You bought some targets. Now go to the range and shoot it for 6 months or a year.
Yep.
Just don't buy something else yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I've got one final thing here, and this is certainly beating the dead horse category, but I thought I would just say it and then maybe zoom in on Roy's eyes before he speaks, is the internet.
I don't even think we have to say anything, do we? Because we are part of the problem.
We are
right?
part of the problem. Yeah.
Oh, because if somebody has already convinced himself he needs to buy this new fancy triple lock, upside down battery powered solar atomic holster
with cappuccino maker,
and we just tell him, is it a need or a want?
Yeah.
Well, now he's like, great.
Yep.
We've just crashed his world, so.
Just remember,
right.
kids, we are the people our parents warned us about. So
it's true.
There you go. So, all right. Well, great stuff. As always, we'd like to hear what you've got to say about that, especially you new shooters. Did this help? I hope so. I mean, you probably already bought your gun. That horse is already out in the pasture, but hopefully some of this has helped you reevaluate your progress of how you're learning to shoot. And for the old shooters, again, it's fundamentals. And I'm sure there's probably somebody out there who's like, if I bought that new widget, and maybe our words of wisdom, maybe I want it instead of need it. So, and it's a constant process. I'll still buy some stupid stuff going forward, but as long as it's not unsafe and all you're out is money, and money's a fleeting thing. So anyway, let us know what you think. If you're on YouTube, leave us a comment down below. And of course, you can always reach us by emailing editor@gunspodcast.us. And before we go, of course, please stop by gunsmagazine.com. I was the editor there, and still right there. All kinds of good stuff, and you can sign up for our newsletters and get all this delivered to your inbox every day. So, Roy, before we get out of here, any closing thoughts besides don't listen to us because we're on the damn internet?
It's all not that complicated, so just relax and enjoy it.
Yep.
If you've got 2 or 3 guns and some ammunition and eye protection, hearing protection, go shoot.
Yep. Exactly. My favorite mixed metaphor, and I say this a lot, it's not rocket surgery.
Exactly.
It's a fine motor skill. Once you know the basics, just practice them until you're really good at it. And someday you'll grow up to be Roy Huntington. So anyway, on behalf of Roy Huntington, of course, I am Brent Wheat, your host of Guns Podcast US. And it's that time that we always end the episode with reminding you now it's time to get out there and get shooting.